Join us and discover beautiful beaches, rugged landscapes, pretty towns, desolate mountain ranges that sweep down to stunning lakes, unique architecture, history and folklore, no shamrocks, no shillelaghs, and definitely no shenanigans, just naked Ireland. Here we are at Belfast City Cemetery, situated just at the junction of the Falls Road and the bottom of the White Rock Road. Now this is an interesting cemetery for several reasons. It has a designated Jewish plot within a separate walled area, which is worth seeing, and it's also the resting place of many of Belfast's captains of industry, people involved in the linen and tobacco industries, shipbuilding and ropemaking, as well as some of Belfast's Lord Mayors. In fact, one of Belfast's most well-known industrialists is buried here, Edward Harland, founder of Harland and Wolff Shipyard, as is the tobacco merchant, Tom Gallagher. I also learned that the leading member of the IRA and Sinn Fein politician Denis Donaldson was buried here, which surprised me as the Republican plot is in the Miltown Cemetery further up the falls on the other side of the road out there. But then I learned that he was shot in 2005 as an MI5 informer, and then that explained why he ended up in here. Wherever you probe in Belfast, the legacy of the Troubles is not far beneath the surface. But the path we're treading right now, between these gravestones, unbelievably follows the line of a 9-foot underground wall which was built to separate the Catholic and Protestant dead. It's incredible that, not content with our religious segregation in schools and in the areas we grew up, that we also need a wall underground to separate us when we're dead. Does this sound a bit hard to believe? In fact, it was the Catholic Church who insisted that the Catholic section had to be physically separate from the Protestant burial ground, and because at the time this was a new cemetery, and the council didn't want an unsightly boundary along it, the decision was taken to build the wall underground. And so here's an artist's impression of that bizarre underground wall beneath our feet. This beautiful drinking fountain tells you immediately that this is a Victorian cemetery, and in fact it opened in 1869. But now we're heading towards the vaults, which were the most prestigious burial places in the cemetery. They're built in sandstone in Gothic style, with a central set of steps known as the Gallagher Steps, after the founder of Gallagher's tobacco factory, who's interred here. This place, like many other parts of the cemetery, has fallen victim to vandals, and as you can see by this horrible burnt fence, it's shocking that sectarian acts are still perpetrated even after people are laid to rest. Since this largely Protestant graveyard sits in Republican West Belfast, vandalism has been rife here. It's been an area which has suffered a lot of antisocial behaviour. So here's an example of some of the more elaborate monuments you're likely to encounter here. This one commemorating an MP and former Lord Mayor of the city alongside his father. And unfortunately, this is all that's left of a mortuary chapel erected here in 1874. It too fell victim to vandals, and this tower is now all that remains. You can see the footprint of the former chapel on the ground. The appalling sectarian attacks on graves and infrastructure in the cemetery isn't confined to Protestant memorials either. The Jewish section of the cemetery has also been attacked, with headstones being smashed there too. We'll take a look at the Jewish cemetery in a moment. It's gated and behind a large wall, but unfortunately these morons are undeterred by these physical barriers and are seemingly intent on wreaking mindless destruction and desecration, no matter what barrier we erect. I thought this grave was interesting. Perhaps Mr. Elon Musk would like to be buried in this plot. Despite everything I've said about the antisocial behaviour here, City Cemetery is nevertheless a very beautiful place, with gorgeous mature trees and seemingly an abundance of wildlife, as you can perhaps just see here if you look carefully. poor ground where people who couldn't afford a marked grave were interred. There are over 80,000 people buried here. And now, as promised, we arrive at the Jewish cemetery. You can see the wall I mentioned earlier. An entry is through this gate. This wall is 8 foot high. This impressive monument is to Daniel Joseph Jaffa, whose son Otto was an important linen exporter and another Lord Mayor of Belfast. He was instrumental in having this area designated as a Jewish burial ground. This part of the cemetery was set aside for Belfast's Jewish residents in 1874. Nearly 300 people are buried here, the last burial taking place in 1964. There was once a small synagogue in the grounds here too, but it's since been demolished. I think there's a special beauty about this part of the city cemetery. It seems so much more private and secluded. And the Jewish cemetery sadly has its own poor ground. I presume it's this large strip on the left. And the memorial you can see just on the right here marks out this poor ground. Here you can see its inscription in Hebrew. And then the information in English beneath. And you'll notice some damage there too, presumably another mindless act at some point. We're outside the Jewish plot again, and now we're looking at what's called the Screen Wall, which is a memorial to soldiers, sailors and military personnel buried in the graveyard, many in unnamed plots. This burial area was established in 1916 for 296 servicemen who died in World War I, but in World War II a further 274 graves were added. So I hope this film has been of interest. If so, don't forget to give the film a like, and of course, most important of all, subscribe. Hit that big red button and the bell icon next to it and become a regular Naked Ireland watcher. You can also buy me a pint by way of a donation to help keep the Naked Ireland content coming. See the link to the donation page in the second paragraph of the description down below the video. All donations are gratefully received. And I hope I'll see you all in the next Naked Ireland video very soon.